This is Black Myth Wukong. We're here on Xbox Series X. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is basically Monkey Souls. It's a Souls-esque experience where you are going around as this sort of Journey to the West type lore adaptation monkey character as you battle various foes in what is quite a boss rush kind of game. Like, there are small little areas that are slightly open where you're fighting, but it's sort of like you get to the start of a chapter, you fight in sort of an open area, you get a little bit of XP, you get a little bit of points, you get a little bit of items, and then you go and you fight a boss. And then you fight another boss, and then it kind of like, eventually after so many bosses, the chapter ends, and you go and, fight some more random, smaller enemies along the way. And we get a few different visual profiles and options for this one, which are interesting. Like, this is the quality mode right here. But yeah, it's an interesting concept. Like, it's Souls-esque, for sure, the stamina, the combat. But you don't really have necessarily that full vibe. Like, it's a lot easier going, and it's a lot less, I guess you would say, challenging compared to something like a traditional Souls-like experience, which is quite intriguing. So if, the Souls thing kind of bothers you, this one is a lot easier going, and it is a lot more of a bit of a button masher, with some other abilities and other skills that you could unleash against enemies along the way. So this is like the first area of the game. You can kind of fast travel back to these different relic points that you've unlocked, which are, like the fires in, Dark Souls games or other games. And from there you kind of, make your way through, you fight enemies, you gather resources, and you become slightly more powerful. It's actually pretty easy to get points and things that will improve your abilities, so you have a self-advance that you can kind of do at any time. You get sparks, and then you work through the various skill trees in order to improve stamina or health. And then of course there's different variations like staffs, your mysticism options, other alterations and transformation abilities. There's a lot under the hood on this one. For sure, there's quite a lot going on. Okay, let's talk about the technical stuff, because I'm tired of seeing the quality mode here. So it looks like this game, it's our usual Unreal Engine 5, so everything is a 4K resolution, but it's, it's all temporally scaled, so it looks like they're using the, temporal scaling solution that comes with Unreal Engine to achieve what actually looks like a clearer picture compared to what I had played on the PlayStation platforms about a year ago, I guess you would say. It actually does help quite a bit. So this one is 4K dynamic, but the internal is 1600p-ish kind of cap, but then it goes lower depending on the scenario at 30 FPS. Then we can go to the settings, and we can go to display, and we can switch it to balanced mode. So balanced mode is supposed to be a middle gap between the quality and the performance mode. So this one seems to be going for sort of your 40 FPS-ish mode. On the PlayStation it was weird, it was 45 FPS there. And this is interesting because it definitely doesn't feel like a fluid 60 FPS, and it feels a little better than the 30 FPS mode. So I'm assuming if you have a frame rate display VR and stuff that will allow you to enjoy this mode, this is what you're going to be getting here as far as a little bit slightly fluid experience. It's not bad. It's another situation where it's I want to say it's 4K, but I think it's a lower cap, slightly below 4K, 1800p-ish range, and then yeah, kind of dynamic at that. So more dynamic and lower resolution kind of thing. You get what I mean? It's all it's all fake numbers. The game still exhibits, it's kind of interesting, when you kind of move side to side, it's got that blur thing going on. But anyways, the balance mode's kind of neat, but I would say that the clear winner for me is the performance mode. So yeah, we're going to go down to performance, and this is the way that I prefer to play it. There's also motion blur settings and sharpening intensity. But yeah, this is your 60 FPS driven mode. It does drop, like there are frame rate drops, like every mode seems to have, well, quality mode actually seems to be pretty stable, but there are performance drops. So for this one, it seems like it's slightly lower, something where it's like the 1600p range, and then it goes down to like 1080ish, so it's like a much softer picture, but you do get like a 60 FPS most of the time. Like I said, it does drop. It is noticeable. There are drops. But it's not terribly bad, and it's actually quite playable, and it's not a terrible way to go about it. So I would say that going, with this mode is a pretty safe bet, and like the picture quality, like the fidelity isn't that bad. Like there is a noticeable drop when you compare it to like the quality mode or the balance mode, but you do get that fluidity level, and you do get like what is a largely stable fluidity level. So I think you will kind of appreciate that for what it is and enjoy that sort of frame rate option. So yeah, basically range from 30 to 60 depending on what mode you want to go with. And then we've also got spatial sound, Dolby Atmos, and console keyboard and mouse support, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, but yeah, I would say performance mode actually looks pretty good. This is genuinely kind of impressive because like the PlayStation version of this game, they use really weird like tactics to achieve stuff, and it's just bizarre why they didn't just kind of use the regular sort of application options for scaling and stuff. And it definitely looks like, for the Xbox platform with the extra year of work, they were able to get some support to make sure that this is actually like, playing in a much more satisfactory way. And I'm actually quite impressed by it, because as I said, the clarity level's a lot better. Like the water, that's kind of how you can really tell, is it's like, it's got like that sort of, it's got like the fuzz, but it's not as bad of a fuzz when you've got like your FSR kind of kicking in, if that makes sense, because it actually looks like water, which is quite nice. But yeah, fidelity-wise, like this is actually really quite, good looking. I'm not going to kill that just in case we end up streaming this again. You can see kind of a little bit of a drop there, but as I was talking about, like sometimes the performance, does have issues, and yeah, it's just stuff like that, like a little stutter here or there, but for the most part, I really genuinely don't think you'll have too many problems playing this on performance mode, and you should be pretty happy with the mixed balance of, visuals and fluidity. But yeah, it's definitely got quite a blur picture-wise between them. Like you can really quite notice the difference there, because it's funny because like output wise we're like trying to output something similar, but like internally it's always such a kind of a mixed bag on this stuff. But it's nice that we kind of get this option, and it's like balance mode actually might be worth checking out for some people. Just kind of going back to that, because it's like, it's not as smooth, but it's not, actually, I don't know, it's got that like weird, kind of like, it's like a judder sort of thing. It's, yeah, it's a bit odd, but the visual fidelity, like there is like quite a clear little bit of a bump up on this one, which I think some people might appreciate. Can you actually get in there? No? Okay. But it kind of makes me feel a little sick almost. It's kind of like a little bit of a Sekiro vibe. If you played that game when it was on the Xbox One X, and it had that like juddery like 45-ish FPS, and it was just like sort of nauseating. Yeah, that's exactly the feeling I get kind of playing this one like this. That's really interesting. It's a little harder to recommend, but maybe something to take a look at, see if you like it and how it flows. But I don't know if I play quality mode for a game that requires fast action. Like, at least the input and everything in this feels really smooth and really quite accurate for what you're trying to do. But there's sometimes, like, with bosses, I was trying to do, like, execute certain attacks, and it's like, it wouldn't quite do it, and it's like, okay. Anyways, yeah, so this one, kind of interesting. Like, it's got, like, quite a lot of scale to it. There's a lot of enemies you'll fight. Your challenges will vary. Most of the bosses, like I said, are actually pretty easy going, but every now and then you get to one of the bosses that's a little bit tougher. There are, you know, like I said, skill trees, but there's also like weapon sort of crafting kind of trees as well, and armor crafting stuff that you can do. I don't think there's really trees in that, but your staff kind of like has different tiers you can go through, and depending on the items you have, you can upgrade it. And then you can also upgrade like your flask stuff, and you can collect and buy stuff from like a store in the game with the willpower that you earn. And you know, like it's actually pretty well crafted. Like there's a good selection of environments. There's quite a variety of enemies, and then lots of little random items that you collect while you're playing. And it is very linear. As I said, there are a couple spaces that offer a little bit more freedom. But as you can tell through a lot of these areas, especially where it like opens up a bit, you're like, oh, that's a boss fighter. But you get what I'm saying. It's like you're kind of going from like one sort of linear space to another. But if you do take a little bit of time to look around, there are things for you to collect, and there are little bonuses for you to gather, and that can make a difference for making the game a little bit easier to play and a little bit easier to handle. So I guess I would say at that point it really comes down to how much you want to get out of the world as far as exploration and stuff, but you can kind of just go through it and almost do it as a bit of a boss rush type thing, and it works quite well for that sort of thing. But there is a surprising amount of gameplay and game time and offerings to this. Like it is quite neat. And then you get the odd side character. It's quite a weird collection of individuals too that you come across, and even the opening story thing is quite ridiculous. Like it opens in this like sort of epic cloud battle, which just seems a little too crazy almost. Like it's quite a situation, but you can see the different like kind of areas that you end up in, and then you can travel to different spots. And it loads pretty quickly, which is nice, because, you know, you die from a boss, you want to get back into it pretty fast. The resting works pretty well, too, you know, it resets kind of the world that you're dealing with. Like, it's an impressive game. Like, it looks like all the other games that use this engine, to a degree, which is kind of funny, like, the rocks and everything. Like, it's weird. It's such a bizarre thing, like, psychologically. Because I look and I was like, that looks really real, right? Like, those rocks, the texturing of the world, the trees, like, it looks really realistic. But at the same time, I look at this and I'm like, wow, it looks the exact same as every other game with this engine. And it's such a weird, like again, like, look at that, the detail, the depth within the rocks. That looks like a realistic, like, environment, right? And yet at the same time, I'm like, I've seen it so many times before. It's kind of funny, but no, it's really effective of creating, like, this sort of like desolate kind of world that you're going through with all these different places on this journey to collect these artifacts and work on this fable and build yourself up and become more powerful and take on these other threats. And no, it's quite neat, and the combat looks cool and it's fluid, and you know, it feels pretty good to unleash upon enemies, and then of course with your stats all backing up into stuff, and the world's kind of reactive to what you're doing. Like, it's a pretty well-crafted Souls-like experience, and I know some might think that it's a little bit different from that, but, like, for me it falls in those rules being something where it's stamina-based, a little bit more hardcore, fighting bosses, moving through environments like this. To me, that very much plays in line with, like, what I consider a Souls-like kind of game. But, like, it's kind of nice looking, and you might get some tearing, too. Like, I guess it's kind of almost expected, but you might experience some tearing in some scenes, but it's quite hidden quite well, if that makes sense. But yeah, when you pan the screen, I don't know how that shows up on YouTube, but there's like that like sort of a motion blur sort of thing around your character. It's quite neat. What would you call that, a motion blur? Where it's sort of like the thing that makes your character stand out looks all blurry. I'm trying to think of the phrasing of it. It's like in photos you do it where you blur the backdrop and you kind of focus on the primary character. A lot of games actually have that sort of an issue, but it's quite noticeable, this one, with all the edge movements and stuff. But yeah, they got some like tricky, neat little enemies too. Like these guys with the crossbows are like seriously annoying. But there's a lot of depth, a lot of design, a lot of style in this one. I really think you'll, you know, have fun playing this and find it to be quite an interesting offering. Like, it is if you are into this type of game, and if you are someone that struggles with the Souls-likes, again, it is, to me, a little bit easier, and I've played, sadly, so many of these types of games over the years. I've built up quite a stacked collection of Dark Souls-esque games in my day, which is kind of funny, but, it's something that releases, and I cover it, and that's just how it goes, right? That's the work. But I don't know, I think you'll find it to be kind of neat, and there's like a good styling. Like the bosses are all quite well crafted. Ugh. Like you see sort of these like epic setups, these very cinematic driven battles, and kind of like an enemy where it's kind of crazy and stuff. There's like a tiger dude and like giant bears and fire, and it is also kind of funny too because I started catching on that a lot of the enemies they like all their attacks and stuff like look different. Like the bosses, but they like kind of use the same attack. Like they'll use the flow across the environment to hit you kind of thing. And it's like the tiger uses like sort of a streak in the air. The air guy uses the air attack. The bear uses a fire attack, and it's always the same like ability. It's kind of funny how it's reused, but like slightly different every time. It's actually quite impressive from that perspective that the game has like such variety, but like falls into a bit of a repetition streak as well. But I mean, any Souls game is going to do that kind of a thing. But like, I don't mind this as much as I like kind of felt about other Souls games. And then of course you kind of pair this with the fact that it is a lot better than it was like on the PlayStation as far as visual fidelity and stuff. Like it is actually quite impressive. I don't know if it's necessarily like impressive enough for like how much of a weight there was to play it, but I guess it's just nice that it finally arrived on the Xbox platform, because it was one of those heavy hitters that was sort of a tragic miss out, and it's like a little bit of an embarrassing title to miss out on, as that just sort of keeps like happening over time. But hey, you finally get to play it if you've been waiting, and you can enjoy the intensity of it and get a pretty good console version of the game here on Series X. It's honestly quite well done. I think you should be pretty pleased with it. Is it perfect as far as like performance and stuff? I mean, it exhibits the usual UE5 problems, but I think for the most part you'll be like, yeah, this is pretty good going. This is kind of nice. I like this. It's neat, and yeah, you should definitely get your value out of it if this is the type of game you're into. That's really always the thing, too, when you're talking about these kind of things, because it's like, it is definitely Souls leaning. A little bit more action-focused, a little bit easier just, like, button mash, but, like, it still has that element of, like, you need to play this as a bit of a Souls thing and make some of the right choices in order to survive, otherwise some of the bosses are gonna, eat you alive. And definitely provide a bit of a challenge that you may not be kind of ready for. But if you are, you can dive in, you can battle all these things and destroy stuff and fight and survive as this monkey guy. Those annoying crossbows. But, like, the sense of scale and the design of this is so, like, majestic. Like, you see, like, the birds in the backdrop, you see all the winds, you get a great sense of scale. Like, they do a good job with this engine. Like, they really did craft something intriguing here, but if you do also expect that Souls thing where you are, like, maneuvering through environments, this doesn't really do that because, well, yeah, you're doing that lightly, but you're not doing it to the degree that you would in another, like, Souls-like, as far as, like, opening paths and stuff and seeing things. Oh, there is another way to go. I went through, like, the tiger area. Quite fascinating. That actually looks like it would be a different kind of threat and everything this way. See, I'm trying to also preserve things that I might not have done, just in case I end up, like, doing any more streaming of it. It is a hard balance to do, doing video content versus streaming content, and, showing things off and stuff. Like, it is, you come out here, you want to show off some good stuff, but you don't want to, like, ruin things in case you need to, like, show off more of it in another format. And, oh, this happens a couple times. These plant things are so annoying. Kind of funny too, honestly, like pretty funny. Jeez, coming out of the ground and stuff to surprise you. Anyways, yeah, Black Myth Wukong. Definitely a pretty solid offering here on the Series X. You'll be happy with it if this is the type of game you're into, and good luck surviving out there, I guess.